The sound of laughter was the worst part. It rippled through the marble-floored lobby of First Capital Bank like a poison, directed at the hunched figure of a 78-year-old man clutching a worn burlap sack. Thaddeus Washington stood frozen in place, his weathered hands trembling slightly as bank employees and well-dressed customers openly pointed and snickered. The bank manager, a tall man in an expensive suit, was the loudest of them all. "Sir, I believe the homeless shelter is 3 blocks east," he announced loudly, generating another wave of cruel laughter. "This is a financial institution, not a collection point for." He gestured dramatically at the tattered sack. "Whatever you've got in there." Thaddeus's eyes, clear and dignified despite his age, scanned the faces around him. Not one showed compassion. Not one person came to his defense. He straightened his back as much as his aging spine would allow and took a deep breath. No one in that gleaming bank lobby could have possibly imagined who Thaddeus Washington truly was, or how completely their lives were about to change. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in the affluent neighborhood of Westshire Heights. First Capital Bank stood proudly on the corner of Winston and Fairfield Avenues, its glass and steel architecture designed to intimidate and impress. Inside, everything sparkled with wealth and exclusivity, from the Italian marble floors to the abstract art pieces valued at more than most people's annual salaries. Preston Whitmore, the branch manager, prided himself on maintaining what he called the right atmosphere. By this, he meant catering exclusively to wealthy clients while making everyone else feel unwelcome. His personal appearance reflected this philosophy: tailored Brooks Brothers suit, Rolex watch, and hair meticulously styled to hide his receding hairline. "Vanessa, remember what I told you about customer expectations?" Preston was saying to the newest teller. "At First Capital, we serve a particular clientele. Don't waste time with people who clearly can't meet our account minimums." Vanessa Diaz nodded reluctantly. At 29, she was the newest employee, hired just 3 weeks ago. Unlike most of the staff, she didn't come from wealth or connections. A single mother with a 5-year-old daughter, she had worked her way through night school to earn her finance degree. This job represented a desperately needed step up from the retail positions she'd held for years. "I understand, Mr. Whitmore," she replied, though she didn't agree with his philosophy at all. The morning proceeded like any other, with wealthy clients coming and going, receiving Preston's obsequious greetings and preferential treatment. The branch was particularly busy that day because of rumors that Regional Director Reginald Blackwood would be making a surprise inspection visit. "Everything must be perfect," Preston had emphasized during the morning meeting. "Director Blackwood only visits branches he's considering for expansion. If we impress him, we could all be looking at promotions and bonuses." At precisely 10:47 a.m., the glass door slid open, and Thaddeus Washington stepped inside. The reaction was immediate. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Eyebrows raised. Thaddeus was tall but stooped with age, his chocolate-brown skin deeply lined from decades of sun exposure. He wore clean but extremely dated clothes, a buttoned shirt that had long gone out of style, pressed pants that were too short, and shoes that had been polished many times but were cracked with age. Most noticeable, however, was the large burlap sack he carried over one shoulder. It was old and patched in several places, cinched at the top with frayed rope. The security guard, Blake Thompson, immediately moved to intercept him. "Can I help you, sir?" Blake asked, his tone making it clear that help meant direct you elsewhere. Thaddeus spoke with a deep, clear voice that carried surprising dignity. "I'm here to speak with someone about my account." Blake looked dubious but gestured toward the waiting area. "Take a seat. Someone will be with you, eventually." Thaddeus nodded politely and made his way to a sleek leather chair, carefully placing his sack beside him. Other customers shifted uncomfortably, some moving to seats farther away. A young couple in designer clothes giggled behind their hands, the woman taking a discreet photo with her phone. From his office, Preston had noticed the commotion. He emerged, taking in the situation with visible displeasure. "Who let him in?" he muttered to Cassandra Hamilton, the senior teller. "He just walked in," she whispered back. Blake didn't want to make a scene by turning him away immediately. Preston straightened his tie. I'll handle this. He approached Thaddeus with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Good morning, sir. I'm Preston Whitmore, the branch manager. How can I help you today? Thaddeus looked up at him with clear, intelligent eyes. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. My name is Thaddeus Washington. I need to access my safe deposit box and discuss some matters regarding my account. Preston's fake smile tightened. Do you have your account information and identification with you? Yes, I do. Thaddeus reached into his jacket pocket and produced an ancient-looking leather wallet. From it, he withdrew a First Capital Bank card so old it didn't even have a magnetic stripe. Preston barely glanced at it. I see. Well, our systems have been updated many times since, whatever era this card is from. You'll need to fill out several forms to verify your identity and update your information. He made a show of looking at his watch. Unfortunately, we're extremely busy today. Perhaps you could come back another time? Maybe next week. Thaddeus remained calm. I've come quite a distance today, Mr. Whitmore. I would prefer to resolve this matter now. By this point, several customers were openly watching the interaction, some with amusement, others with discomfort. Cynthia Paynebrooks, one of the bank's wealthiest clients, approached Preston. Preston, darling, she said loudly, ignoring Thaddeus completely. I don't mean to interrupt, but I have that luncheon at the country club at noon. Could you expedite my transaction? Of course, Mrs. Paynebrooks. Preston's demeanor transformed instantly. Cassandra will assist you right away. Top priority. Cassandra immediately opened a new teller window, ushering Cynthia forward while other customers waited in line. Thaddeus observed this silently, his expression unchanging. As you can see, Preston turned back to Thaddeus. We're quite busy with our regular clientele. If you'd like to leave that bag with security, I can have someone look into your situation when there's time. The contents of this bag are precisely why I'm here, Thaddeus replied calmly. And I prefer to keep it with me. Preston's patience was visibly wearing thin. Sir, for security reasons, we can't allow unexamined packages of that size into the bank. It's not a security risk, I assure you. What's in it then? Preston demanded, his voice rising enough that everyone in the lobby could hear. Thaddeus paused, then answered simply, history. This cryptic response was too much for Preston. He gestured to Blake. Sir, I think it's best if you come back another day with proper identification and without unusual items. Blake will escort you out. Blake stepped forward, but before he could reach Thaddeus, Vanessa spoke up from her teller window. I can help him, Mr. Whitmore, she called out. My line is empty right now. Preston shot her a warning look, but Vanessa pretended not to notice. She waved Thaddeus over. Please, sir. I'd be happy to assist you. Thaddeus nodded appreciatively and made his way to her window, the burlap sack still clutched firmly in one hand. As he passed Preston, he said quietly, Your grandfather would be disappointed in what this bank has become. Preston froze, his face registering shock before quickly reassembling into a mask of contempt. Excuse me. But Thaddeus had already reached Vanessa's window. Thank you, young lady, he said, his voice warm with genuine gratitude. Of course, sir. How can I help you today? Vanessa asked, ignoring Preston's glare from across the lobby. I need to access my safe deposit box and review my account information, Thaddeus explained, sliding his ancient bank card and a driver's license across the counter. Vanessa examined them carefully. Let me look this up for you, Mr. Washington. She typed his information into the computer system, and almost immediately, her expression changed. She blinked several times, as if confirming what she was seeing, then glanced up at Thaddeus with new curiosity in her eyes. One moment, please, she said, picking up her phone to call a supervisor. Preston, who had been watching this exchange like a hawk, intercepted the call and marched over. I'll take it from here, Vanessa, he said tersely. But Mr. Whitmore, his account is. I said I'll handle it. Preston's tone left no room for argument. Vanessa reluctantly stepped aside as Preston positioned himself at the computer. His expression of annoyance quickly shifted to confusion as he viewed the screen. There must be some mistake, he muttered, typing rapidly. Thaddeus waited patiently, his weathered hands resting on the counter. Behind them, the lobby had grown surprisingly quiet as customers and staff alike observed the unusual interaction. The young couple who had been laughing earlier now filmed discreetly with their phones. Preston's face had gone pale. He looked up at Thaddeus, then back at the screen, then at the tattered sack. "Mr. Washington," he said, his voice suddenly much softer. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office?" "I'm comfortable right here," Thaddeus replied. "Unless accessing my safe deposit box requires privacy." Preston swallowed hard. "Your safe deposit box hasn't been accessed in over 40 years, Mr. Washington." "That's correct. And you want to access it now?" "Yes. Today." Thaddeus's tone remained pleasant but firm. Preston nodded, visibly uncomfortable. I'll need to verify some additional information. Security protocols for long dormant accounts, you understand." "Of course," Thaddeus agreed. "Though I should mention that your security protocols didn't seem to concern you when you were trying to remove me from the premises." This comment caused a few audible gasps from those close enough to hear. Preston's face flushed red. "A misunderstanding," he said through gritted teeth. "If you'll just—" He was interrupted by the sudden commotion at the front entrance. Everyone turned to see a distinguished black man in his 60s entering the bank, flanked by two assistants. He wore an impeccably tailored suit and carried himself with unmistakable authority. Preston's eyes widened in panic. "Director Blackwood," he whispered. Reginald Blackwood paused just inside the entrance, surveying the scene with sharp, evaluative eyes. His gaze moved from Preston's flustered expression to Thaddeus and his worn sack, then to the unusually quiet lobby of customers clearly watching some drama unfold. "Mr. Whitmore," Blackwood called out, his voice deep and commanding. "I hope I'm not interrupting something important." Preston straightened his tie nervously. "Not at all, Director Blackwood. We're just handling a unusual situation." He gestured to a nearby assistant. "Clara, please take Director Blackwood to my office. I'll join you momentarily." But Blackwood was already walking toward Preston and Thaddeus, his interest clearly piqued. "I prefer to see how our branches handle unusual situations, Mr. Whitmore. It tells me far more than any quarterly report." Preston's smile became even more strained. "Of course, sir. We were just trying to prevent me from accessing my safe deposit box," Thaddeus finished calmly. Director Blackwood's attention shifted fully to Thaddeus. For a moment, he studied the elderly man carefully. Then, to everyone's surprise, his formal demeanor melted into one of shock and then warm recognition. "Mr. Washington?" "Thaddeus Washington," Blackwood asked, stepping closer. Thaddeus nodded, a small smile forming on his weathered face. "Hello, Reggie. It's been a long time." "Almost 30 years," Blackwood replied, extending his hand with genuine respect. "I never thought I'd see you back here." The two men shook hands while Preston looked on in bewilderment. You know each other?" "Mr. Washington gave me my first job in banking," Blackwood explained, his tone making it clear that this was someone of importance. "A summer position, filing loan applications in the basement of the original branch." Thaddeus chuckled. "You were just a skinny college kid then. Look at you now." The entire bank had fallen completely silent. Even Cynthia Paynebrooks had stopped mid-transaction to stare. Vanessa, still standing nearby, noticed the shift in power dynamics with keen interest. Whatever was in the computer system about Thaddeus's account, combined with Director Blackwood's obvious respect, suggested there was far more to this elderly man than his humble appearance indicated. "Mr. Whitmore," Blackwood said, his voice now carrying a hint of steel, "I trust you're providing Mr. Washington with every courtesy?" Preston's face had gone pale. Of course, there was just some confusion about." "About what exactly?" Blackwood asked, glancing around the lobby at the staring customers. "And why does it appear that half your clientele is more interested in this interaction than their banking?" A young man in designer clothes quickly lowered his phone, where he'd been recording the scene. Thaddeus placed a gentle hand on Blackwood's arm. "I think it might be time to clear up some confusion, Reggie. Would you mind accompanying me to the vault? There's something in my safe deposit box I'd like you to see." Blackwood nodded. "It would be my honor, Mr. Washington." Preston, desperate to regain control of the situation, stepped forward. "I'll escort you both personally. And I'll need Ms. Diaz to join us," Thaddeus added, gesturing to Vanessa. "She was the only one who showed me basic courtesy when I arrived." Vanessa looked surprised but moved around the counter to join them. As they started toward the vault area, Thaddeus turned to the security guard. "Young man, would you mind watching my sack? I'll need it shortly." Blake, now thoroughly confused about the elderly man's status, took the burlap sack with careful hands. "Yes, sir. I'll guard it personally." The small group proceeded to the vault area, leaving behind a lobby buzzing with whispered speculation. As they walked, Vanessa's curiosity finally got the better of her. "Mr. Washington, if you don't mind me asking, the account information I saw showed an unusual designation." Thaddeus finished for her. "Yes, I imagine it would look quite strange in the modern system." They reached the vault, where Preston fumbled with the security protocols. Once inside, he led them to the safe deposit box section, checking his computer terminal. "Box 7, Preston announced, his voice slightly shaky. "One of our original boxes from when the branch opened." "Before this branch opened," Thaddeus corrected quietly. Preston retrieved the long, narrow metal box and placed it on a private table in the viewing room. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Washington?" "Please stay," Thaddeus said. "What's in this box concerns the future of this branch. You should be present as the current manager." Preston nodded stiffly, remaining by the door while Thaddeus took a seat at the table. Blackwood and Vanessa stood nearby. With hands that showed only the slightest tremor of age, Thaddeus produced an old key from his wallet and unlocked the box. Inside were several neatly organized document folders, yellowed with age but pristinely preserved. 57 years ago, Thaddeus began, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. This bank didn't exist. At least, not as you know it today. He carefully removed the top folder and opened it to reveal black and white photographs. They showed a modest storefront with a sign reading Community Trust and Savings. This was the original bank, founded to serve the Westshire community when no other bank would offer loans or accounts to black business owners or families, Thaddeus explained. "I was one of 3 founders. The others were Charles Montgomery and William Preston Whitmore." At this, Preston's eyes widened. "William Preston, my grandfather?" "Yes," Thaddeus confirmed. "Your grandfather and I were friends from our Army days. When we returned from service, we found that despite fighting for our country, many doors remained closed to black veterans seeking loans to start businesses or buy homes." He removed another document, the original Articles of Incorporation for Community Trust and Savings. "Your grandfather believed that financial opportunity should be available to all who worked hard, regardless of color. He put up half the initial capital. Charles and I scraped together the rest." Blackwood nodded solemnly. "The bank that gave opportunities to people like my parents. They got their first home loan from Community Trust when no one else would consider them, despite my father's steady job at the steel mill." Thaddeus smiled at the memory. "Your father was one of our first customers." He continued to the next document, and his expression grew more serious. "Over time, we grew successful. Too successful, perhaps. Larger banks took notice. When your grandfather died, Preston, control of his shares passed to your father." Preston swallowed hard. He knew what was coming. "Your father had different ideas about the direction of the bank," Thaddeus continued. "He wanted to rebrand, expand to wealthier areas, attract a different clientele. Charles and I disagreed. We fought to maintain the community focus." "What happened?" Vanessa asked softly. "Charles died suddenly of a heart attack," Thaddeus replied. "And I became ill. Cancer. The doctors gave me months to live." He pulled out another document, a stock transfer agreement dated 40 years earlier. "Your father approached me while I was in the hospital, Preston. He offered to buy my shares for a fraction of their worth, knowing I had no family and believing I would die soon. He presented it as ensuring my legacy would continue." Preston looked at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "I signed the papers," Thaddeus said. "But I didn't die. Against all odds, I recovered." By then, Community Trust had become First Capital Bank, and the transformation was complete. The community we had served for years was effectively shut out. But if you recovered, why didn't you fight the agreement? Vanessa asked. It sounds like it was signed under duress. Thaddeus smiled sadly. Sometimes, young lady, the fight goes out of you. I was alone. Your father, he glanced at Preston, had powerful lawyers. And I had begun to believe that perhaps the world had no place for banking with a conscience. So you walked away, Blackwood said quietly. You disappeared. I did, Thaddeus acknowledged. I lived simply on what little money I had left. Volunteered. Traveled a bit. Watched from afar as First Capital grew into what it is today. He reached the final document in the box and paused, his hand resting upon it. But I never completed the stock transfer properly, Thaddeus revealed. There was one final document, a transfer of ownership rights, that required filing with the State Regulatory Commission. Your father sent it to me to sign after I left the hospital, but I never returned it. Preston's head snapped up. What are you saying? I'm saying, Thaddeus replied calmly, that technically, legally, I still own 33% of First Capital Bank's parent company. I verified this with attorneys. The statute of limitations for contesting the incomplete transfer has long passed. He slid the final document across the table, a modern legal opinion letter dated just 1 week earlier. Director Blackwood picked it up, scanning it quickly with widening eyes. This is from Harrington and Walsh. They're the top banking attorneys in the state. And they've confirmed my position, Thaddeus said. I remain a major shareholder of this institution. Preston sank into a nearby chair, his face ashen. That's impossible. Our corporate records were never properly updated, Thaddeus finished. A clerical error that went unnoticed for decades. Or perhaps your father simply assumed I had died and never followed up. He turned to Blackwood. Reggie, I've watched your career with interest. You've risen to a position of considerable influence in this company. Tell me honestly, has First Capital remained true to any of the principles upon which it was founded? Blackwood sighed deeply. No, Mr. Washington. I've tried to implement community programs when possible, but the overall direction has been. He glanced at Preston. Exclusionary, to put it kindly. First Capital now primarily serves the wealthy while systematically making it difficult for working-class families to access our services. Thaddeus nodded thoughtfully. That's what I feared. And what I observed today, being mocked and nearly thrown out, simply confirmed it. Preston finally found his voice. Mr. Washington, if what you're saying is true, why come forward now? After all these years. Thaddeus's expression softened. Because I'm truly in my final years now, Preston, and I've been thinking about legacy, not just mine, but your grandfather's too. This bank was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to help people who needed a chance. He turned to Vanessa. People like you, I imagine. Vanessa looked surprised. Me? I noticed things, Thaddeus said kindly. Your shoes are polished, but worn at the heels. Your clothes are neat, but not expensive. You wear no jewelry except a simple wedding band. Yet you mentioned no husband when you helped me. And you have a small photograph of a child at your teller station. Vanessa nodded, impressed by his observation. My daughter, Sophia. She's 5. My husband passed away 3 years ago. And this job is important to you. It's everything, she admitted. The pay is better than retail, and the hours let me be home when Sophia gets back from kindergarten. But you've seen how this bank treats certain customers, Thaddeus finished for her. Yes, she said quietly. It bothers me every day. Thaddeus turned back to the documents, organizing them carefully. I didn't come here to cause trouble or seek revenge. I came because I received some news about First Capital that concerned me deeply. He looked directly at Preston. Your branch is failing, isn't it, Mr. Whitmore? Preston's shock was evident. How could you possibly know that? Banking is still a small world, Thaddeus replied. I have friends who keep me informed. This branch's deposits have decreased steadily over the past 2 years. Loan originations are down. Corporate has been considering closing it entirely. Blackwood nodded grimly. That's actually why I'm here today. To evaluate whether this branch remains viable. Preston looked stricken. Director Blackwood, I assure you we're making every effort to attract high-value clients, while ignoring the community that surrounds you. Thaddeus interjected. This neighborhood has changed again, Preston. Young families are moving in. Small businesses are opening. There's opportunity here, just not the kind you've been pursuing. He turned to Blackwood. That's what's in my sack, Reggie. The reason I came today. Your sack? Blackwood asked, confused. Ask the security guard to bring it in, please. Preston, moving mechanically, went to the door and summoned Blake, who brought in the tattered burlap sack with careful hands. Thaddeus took it with a nod of thanks and untied the frayed rope at its top. When I heard this branch might close, I started visiting the neighborhood, walking around, talking to people, learning about their financial needs. From the sack, he began removing folders, dozens of them, each neatly labeled. This is Maria Ortega, who runs the bakery 3 blocks over. She needs financing to expand her kitchen. This is the Jackson family, who've been saving for a home down payment but can't find a bank willing to consider their application because of where they want to buy. This is Emmanuel Lafayette, whose small tech startup needs a business line of credit. He continued pulling out folder after folder, spreading them across the table. 57 potential customers. Good people. Hard workers with solid finances. All living or working within 10 blocks of this branch. All turned away or discouraged by First Capital's policies and practices. The room fell silent as the 3 bankers stared at the mountain of lost opportunity before them. I spent 3 months compiling these, Thaddeus explained. At first, just out of curiosity. Then, as a challenge to myself. Could the old model still work? Could a bank succeed by serving everyone in the community, not just the wealthy? He looked at Blackwood. My analysis says yes. If this branch reversed course, simplified its fee structures, revised its loan requirements to focus on ability to pay rather than arbitrary minimums, and actively reached out to local businesses, it could not only survive, but thrive. Blackwood picked up one of the folders, scanning it with growing interest. These are remarkably detailed. Banking fundamentals haven't changed that much in 50 years, Thaddeus said with a small smile. People still need loans to create opportunity. They still need safe places for their money. They still need financial institutions that treat them with dignity. He looked pointedly at Preston. They still need what your grandfather believed in. Preston, for the first time, seemed genuinely affected. I never knew this history. My father never spoke of you, or Mr. Montgomery. He only talked about grandfather as a banking pioneer. He was that, Thaddeus agreed. But his pioneering wasn't about profit margins. It was about principle. About seeing potential in people others dismissed. Vanessa, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. Mr. Washington, what exactly are you proposing? As a shareholder, do you want to take control of the branch? Thaddeus shook his head. No, young lady. I'm much too old for that. What I want is to present an alternative vision before this branch is closed. A return to its roots. He turned to Blackwood. I'm prepared to invest additional capital, my own money, to revitalize this branch under a new model. The original model. Community-focused. Accessible to all. That would require significant policy changes, Blackwood said thoughtfully. Staff retraining, new marketing approaches. And new leadership, Thaddeus added, looking directly at Preston. Preston's face flushed. You want me fired? No, Thaddeus said, surprising everyone. I want you educated. Your grandfather saw banking as service, not status. I believe that somewhere in you, that same vision exists. You just need to find it again. He pushed one final folder toward Preston. Inside was a faded photograph of 3 young men standing proudly in front of the original community trust and savings. That's your grandfather in the middle, Thaddeus said softly. The day we opened our doors. He believed in something larger than himself. The question is, do you? Preston stared at the photograph for a long moment. His grandfather, his namesake, looked so proud, so purposeful, so different from the banking world Preston had been trained to value. I don't know if I can change the way this branch operates, Preston admitted. Corporate policies can be amended with shareholder influence, Blackwood interjected, a new light in his eyes. Especially with a pilot program backed by additional investment. He looked at Thaddeus with growing excitement. Mr. Washington, I believe your proposal has merit. More than merit. It might be exactly what First Capital needs to rediscover its purpose. Thaddeus smiled, the weight of decades seeming to lift from his shoulders. Then I have one condition for my investment and continued shareholder support. Name it, Blackwood said. Thaddeus gestured to Vanessa. Ms. Diaz becomes assistant branch manager, with a focus on community outreach. She understands both worlds, the bank's operations and the community's needs. And she was the only person here today who saw beyond appearances. Vanessa's eyes widened. Mr. Washington, I'm honored, but I've only been here 3 weeks. I don't have the experience. You have the character, Thaddeus replied simply. Banking skills can be taught. Integrity and compassion must come from within. 1 month later, First Capital Bank's Westshire Heights branch looked remarkably different. The imposing security desk had been replaced with a welcoming information counter. New signage promoted small business services and first-time homebuyer programs. The lobby featured photographs from the bank's original incarnation as community trust and savings, alongside its founders' biographies. Thaddeus Washington sat in a comfortable chair, observing the transformation with quiet satisfaction. Nearby, Vanessa was helping a young couple with mortgage pre-approval paperwork. Preston emerged from his office, looking different as well. His designer suit remained, but his demeanor had changed, less arrogant, more attentive. He spotted Thaddeus and walked over. Mr. Washington, I wasn't expecting you today. Just observing, Thaddeus replied. 2 of the people from my folders opened accounts this morning. Maria Ortega's loan was approved yesterday. Preston nodded. We've had 27 new accounts in the past 3 weeks. Small ones, but growing. And the community response to our new programs has been. He paused, searching for the right word, eye-opening. Your grandfather would be proud, Thaddeus said. Preston's expression grew serious. I owe you an apology for how I treated you when you first came in. It was inexcusable. It was a symptom of a larger problem, Thaddeus replied evenly. The real test is whether you've learned from it. Before Preston could respond, the front doors opened, and Director Blackwood entered with several corporate executives. He spotted Thaddeus and Preston and smiled broadly. Gentlemen, perfect timing. The board has reviewed our first-month results for the Community Banking Initiative. They've approved expansion to 3 more branches. Preston looked genuinely pleased. That's excellent news, sir. Indeed it is, Blackwood agreed. And Preston, they were particularly impressed with your report on local business integration strategies. Quite a turnaround from your previous approach. As the executives moved toward the conference room, Thaddeus rose slowly to his feet. I should be going, he said. I've seen what I needed to see. Preston hesitated, then asked, Will you be back, Mr. Washington? Thaddeus gazed around the bank, at Vanessa helping the young couple, at the diverse customers now filling the lobby, at the photograph of 3 hopeful young men hanging on the wall. I believe I will, he said softly. This feels like home again. As he walked toward the exit, Vanessa caught his eye and gave him a warm smile and nod of gratitude. Outside, the midday sun illuminated the new sign beneath the bank's logo, serving our community since 1968. Thaddeus paused to read it, his weathered hand resting on the door. The words that had once been forgotten were now restored, just as the bank's purpose had been. He nodded once in satisfaction and stepped out into the sunlight, walking tall despite his years. Sometimes true wealth isn't found in a vault or measured in dollars. Sometimes it lies in remembering who you are, where you came from, and the difference you can make by treating every person with dignity, regardless of their appearance. And sometimes, the most valuable thing a person can carry isn't money or status, but principles that endure long after we're gone. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you or someone you know ever battled against prejudice? Drop a comment below, share your story. Subscribe for more powerful stories of injustice, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.